Lately, the video game industry seems to absolutely adore releasing all kinds of remakes, remasters, whatever you want to call them, and Nintendo is no different. It gives new players the chance to experience games they might have missed out on for the first time, and existing fans a fresh take on their all-time favorites. People love them, but not me. I myself would never buy into the practice of tarnishing the vision and legacy of the original who am I kidding? With a new era of Nintendo upon us, I thought it'd be a fun time to take a guess as to what remakes, remasters, whatever you want to call them, they're gonna whip up for us for the next generation. Some of these games may also be playable on the Switch 1, but if it was announced after the Nintendo Direct in April 2025, I'm just gonna consider it part of the Switch 2 era. If my predictions come true, well then hip hip hooray! And if they don't, feel free to call me a stupid bum. You have my permission. You only hurt my dumb baby feelings as a result. But that's probably exactly what you want, isn't it? Well, guess what? The jerk store called, and they're all out of you. Starting off with Mario, because this is a Nintendo video after all. The mainline games haven't really had too many remakes, but I have a feeling that's gonna change soon, and my guts tell me if one of these games were to receive one, it would be Super Mario Sunshine. 64 got its remake back in 2004, and Galaxy is already a perfect game, so that leaves Sunshine in a very nice position to get this treatment. There's a lot of improvements they can make. For example, maybe they could finish the game this time. Okay, that may have sounded overly harsh, but let it be known, I adore what the game does right, at least when I'm not suffering. Because of how rushed Sunshine's development was, a common complaint is that it feels surprisingly unpolished for a Nintendo title, let alone their flagship series. I think remakes should be prioritized for games that could use a second chance. And as great as Sunshine still is, it would be awesome to see Nintendo go back and potentially make it even better. Now, you may be thinking, but Miguel Soldier, why would they bother remaking Sunshine when it's already playable on the Switch? Well, because not only does Sunshine and 3D All-Stars still contain all the glitches and quirks that make it difficult to enjoy, but also because I especially love the part where you can't even buy it anymore. Make tracking blue coins easier, rework some of the shines to be less frustrating, and give the game the amount of polish similar to what Odyssey has, and you've got a Super Mario Sunshine that will be a lot easier for people to love. Some might worry the enemy designs will be altered to look closer to their modern, more uniform appearances, but I don't think that's anything to worry about. From what we've seen lately, Nintendo has seriously embraced Mario games being weird again, and Sunshine is one of the wackiest Mario games out there, and I mean that in the best way possible. I can see them taking the naming scheme of simply titling this hypothetical remake Super Mario Sunshine. If they have to give it a subtitle, all I ask is that it's something cool, and not something like Super Mario Sunshine plus Shadow Mario's Journey. That's just lame. Unlike Mario, the Zelda series has been no stranger to lots of re-releases for their beloved entries, with each system since the 3DS getting 2 of them. So it's probably no surprise the Switch 2 will have its fair share of fancy remasters as well. And after some extremely careful analysis and consideration, I've come to the conclusion that I have zero idea what I'm talking about. Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD for Switch have been some of the most requested ports ever. People have been begging for these since like 2016, man. So why are they taking so long? Is it because they're doing a Twilight Princess remake? If that's the case, then does Wind Waker get one too? But how the heck do you remake Wind Waker? Skyward Sword just got a remaster not too long ago, so it's fine for a while. But do you know what was too long ago? Ocarina of Time 3D, released in 2011. But they can't just port the 3DS one over and call it Ocarina of Time 3D, cause I hate to break it to you guys, but I doubt the Switch 2 is getting 3D support anytime soon. So they'd have to remake the game again, which doesn't seem too unlikely considering how famous it is. But if they remake Ocarina, what about Majora's Mask? Will it be closer to the N64 or 3DS version? Will the moon speak directly to me and tell me to enable gyro controls? Who knows? The easiest prediction would just be ports of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, but because Nintendo is so unpredictable, I'm gonna go further than that. I'm going to predict either a Twilight Princess remake or an Ocarina of Time remake, and here's why. Twilight Princess because the HD version from 2016 was criticized for not giving the game the proper visual upgrade it needed, and Ocarina of Time because now with Skyward Sword HD, they've done remasters for all 5 of the traditional 3D Zeldas, so they're going to loop back to the first one and begin doing remakes. And those are just the 3D entries. We haven't even brought up the possibility of remakes for Link's crossbow training or the Oracle games. Kirby's Return to Dreamland got a very nice remake in 2023, so it's only logical to assume the 3DS titles are up next. Though I'm not sure if they would have Deluxe in the titles. What, are you gonna call it Kirby Triple Deluxe Deluxe? My ideal remake for them both would be a 2-in-1 package appropriately titled Kirby Triple Deluxe plus Planet Robobot. It makes sense for them to be bundled together, since they play nearly identically and use pretty much the same art style. I've seen some suggest they add new content, similar to Return to Dreamland Deluxe's Magolor Epilogue. And excuse me if I sound like a total lamer here, but I don't really want that. If these games were to be bundled together, that is a lot of content for players to sink their teeth into. Heck, there's enough content in each of these games individually. They play and sound great, the level designs are fantastic with so many copy abilities to mess around with. Really, the only change I'd make would be for Triple Deluxe to track which rare keychains you've collected, and that's it. There's not even that much they'd have to rework when it comes to the 3DS's second screen. The game's barely used it. All these games need is a visual upgrade. They're perfect enough as they are. Which brings us to Metroid Prime 2 Echoes and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. Yeah, I know it's another pair of extremely safe picks, but what are they gonna do instead, another Metroid 2 remake? And after how gorgeous the first Prime's remaster turned out, a lot of people have been requesting 2 and 3 receive visual overhauls as well, especially after Prime 4 finally decided to be a real game. And for those that are just getting into the series, starting with the first Prime and having to skip all the way to 4 would be so unsatisfying. You don't have to play them in order, but I mean, come on. It's cooler that way, and everyone knows it. Prime Remastered was pretty successful for being a game from an underperforming series that was suddenly released with barely any advertising. It sold over 1 million copies under a year, and because of that, I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo gave the green light to begin the remastering of the other two as well. I will say, because Prime Remastered set the foundation of what to expect, it doesn't make talking about these hypothetical re-releases of 2 and 3 that thrilling. Besides the updated visuals and new control options, Metroid Prime Remastered plays, sounds, and feels basically identical to the original, and I can imagine Echoes and Corruption Remastered, if they ever happen, will be just that. Now, is that a bad thing? Of course not. Unless you're a Prime Pinball Remastered advocate, in which case I might have bad news. There's already been remakes of the first 3 Fire Emblem games, so it only makes sense that the 4th one would be next in line. Genealogy of the Holy War, a Japanese-only release on the Super Famicom. There's been a lot of rumors of this remake for quite a while, which I wouldn't normally pay attention to. However, the main character of the game, Sigurd, is especially prominent in Fire Emblem Engage. That can't just be a coincidence, right? Did the Engage developers just really love his game in particular? Or is it perhaps hinting at something to come? Hey, this one makes sense. As it was originally released back in 1996, more than enough time has passed to revisit it and give it a complete makeover. And because it was only in Japan, a Holy War remake is pretty much gonna be a brand new game to a lot of people. Anyways, that's enough Fire Emblem talk from me. It was fun enough, but I need to dedicate my time to playing Super Smash Bros. Instead. Well, it was nice knowing you, Sigurd. I'm gonna miss pairing up with your spirit to do battle. Oh my god, you gotta be kidding me! The Earthbound or Mother series is wrapped up. Confirmed by the creator himself, there's no plans for any more games. So realistically, the only new projects the series could get are remakes. Earthbound is perfectly fine as it is, and although I wouldn't be opposed to seeing it with fancy graphics, that's not the reason I'm looking for remakes. That would be the games that come before and after it. Mother 1 is such a cool game, so ambitious and unique, especially for an RPG in 1989, but man, it's not that fun to play. It would benefit greatly by being recreated in a time period where developers actually know how to make an RPG not miserable to play. I do feel like removing it off the NES would take away some of the magic, but the original is already on Switch Online, so no big deal. This trilogy would also grant players outside of Japan the opportunity to finally play an official release of Mother 3. Yep, here we are, yet another Japanese-only game, and probably the most infamous one of them all. At this point, a remake is realistically going to be the only way we're ever going to get Mother 3. There's a high chance a solid amount of the content deemed controversial will be censored or removed entirely, which really sucks, but I'd still rather have an official English release of Mother 3 that's slightly altered, then no English release at all. Also, I have no idea what they'd even call the game. Do they use the original Japanese title, or change it similar to how Mother 1 was renamed? I don't know. Earthbound 2 just sounds really wrong. It being the third game of a trilogy doesn't help either. I'm honestly convinced that's half the reason why the game is yet to be localized. To this day, 2 Nintendo employees are endlessly fighting over calling it Mother 3 or Earthbound 2. Up next are 3 games: Luigi's Mansion, Star Fox Assault, and F-Zero GX. And what do all 3 of these have in common? Well, yeah, they're all from the GameCube, but more importantly is that I can't tell if these would get basic visual upgrades or be reworked to include new features and changes. For example, they could easily just increase the resolution of Luigi's Mansion 1 and throw it on Switch, kinda like Pikmin 1 and 2, no problem. However, Luigi's Mansion previously did have a remake on 3DS, and while the controls and visuals were a downgrade, there were a lot of noticeable changes, such as the hidden mansion, new flashlight options, and multiplayer, which, as you might have guessed, are absent from the GameCube version. Because of that, it's hard to determine if they'd want to bother with yet another remake for this game. Then for Star Fox, Assault seems to be the fan favorite right behind 64. The flying segments of the game are incredible, but the on-foot parts could admittedly use some work. In aerial mission, Assault runs at 60 frames per second and it's beautiful. Meanwhile, on the ground, it gets bumped down to 30, which would be a super easy upgrade on improved hardware. Also, when it comes to on-foot missions, the controls could really use some changes. The default controls are real tough to get used to, and even when using the dual stick option provided in the game itself, it just feels wrong. I can't really explain it. And finally, F-Zero GX is considered the pinnacle of this series, and besides removing functionality with the arcade version of the game, you could argue it doesn't need any changes whatsoever. But I cannot deny having online multiplayer would be really, really nice. I'm gonna have my final predictions for these be: Luigi's Mansion gets a remake, Star Fox Assault gets an HD remaster, and F-Zero GX gets an enhanced remaster featuring online multiplayer. I can't wait to be wrong about each and every one of these. As one of the 10 people that actually like Xenoblade 2, I'm pretty confident in saying no matter your opinion on the game, everyone agrees it would benefit immensely from a definitive edition. The blade summoning system, while it has its moments to be entertaining, the randomness can be really annoying when blades are used for practically everything in the entire game. Maybe have an option to buy guaranteed rare blades with gold, or have them be a reward for defeating bosses. Make upgrading blades less of a hassle, rework how field skills work, and rebalance some of the weapon classes because they are not all created equally. The English voice acting could seriously use some retakes, but because Xenoblade is developed in Japan, I doubt this would be a high priority for them. Not totally impossible, but I'm not getting my hopes up. And then include all the downloadable content from the original, including Torn of the Golden Country, as part of the package. Xenoblade 1 got its remaster about 10 years after its Japanese release, then similarly the same thing for Xenoblade X. So I wouldn't be surprised if Monolith Soft comes back and does something special for Xenoblade 2s at one point as well. But we're not done talking about Monolith Soft, because a lot of elements in recent Xenoblade games have heavily hinted at Xenosaga making a return. And after Nintendo and Bandai Namco played nice for Baten Kaitos on Switch, remakes of the Xenosaga trilogy aren't completely impossible anymore. Yes, I said remakes rather than remasters because it feels like a project Monolith Soft would use to take a break from their main series. I'm not saying they hate making Xenoblade, but after doing nothing but it for 15 years straight, I mean, you probably want to mix it up eventually, right? Kid Icarus Uprising, the masterpiece that everyone hates actually playing. The game itself is near perfect, but my goodness, the controls are even more perfect at leaving players' hands hurting in no time. I gotta know, who on the Uprising team saw the negative reception to Metroid Prime Hunter's controls and said, "Guys, I have a fantastic idea." Luckily, I can easily see a remaster happening, since the game isn't really that hard to move off the 3DS. I don't remember any moments where you need to be extremely precise, and the reticle size and aim assist are pretty forgiving. The game could very easily be adapted to work with dual stick controls. Then there's the dual screens. The top one is where all the action is at, and the bottom is where the portraits of the characters currently speaking show up. At first I thought, okay, how the heck would that work on a single screen? And that's when I realized Smash Bros figured this out all the way back in 2014. Yeah, they could just replicate what Palutena's guidance does and have a section at the bottom of the screen for it. Problem solved. In terms of content, honestly, Uprising is just fine. It is packed with a fantastic single-player campaign, with a crazy amount of weapons and challenges, as well as online multiplayer. The creator of Uprising was Masahiro Sakurai, and on his YouTube channel he said, "Gee, it sure would be nice to play this game on a big screen and fancy graphics." And after Smash Ultimate, he received a game proposal which he immediately accepted. Like, I mean, come on, it's just gotta be Kid Icarus Uprising, right? I don't think he would give people a hint if the project was another Smash Bros. Oh yeah, Smash Bros. Smash is another series that's always been kinda weird when it comes to re-releases. Smash 64 made it onto the Wii Shop channel, so I wouldn't be surprised if that one made a return via Switch Online. And the same goes for Smash Bros. Melee. They could just make it a part of GameCube Switch Online, right? This is probably a bad time to mention I don't think GameCube Switch Online is happening, but that's a topic for another video. Re-releases of Smash for 3DS and Wii U? So I've come to the conclusion that we will get Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Complete Edition. No, not a deluxe version. I think if they were to work on new Smash content, they might as well put it towards a brand new game. But while we wait for said new game, a re-release of Ultimate could very well tide fans over until then. Increase the resolution, include all DLC on the cartridge, maybe even a balance patch. Listen, I don't keep up with the competitive side of Smash or anything, but even I agree the thing from Minecraft needs to be toned down. Does Ultimate have problems? Absolutely. I really want to see a new game with updated characters and more substantial single-player stuff. But Ultimate's core gameplay is so much fun, with so much to do, I really wouldn't mind sticking with it just a while longer. And those, my friends, are my predictions of the remakes, remasters, yeah, you get the idea. Nintendo is gonna put out for the Switch 2 generation. Of course, I'd much prefer to see brand new games, considering I think the Switch 1 era maybe relied a little too heavily on re-releases, but as long as there's a solid balance between the two, I can't complain too much about more people being able to play more games. And at the end of the day, as long as the games are fun, that's what ultimately matters. So, on the topic of re-releases, surely it's still not too late to ask for Wii Fit on 3DS, right?